Hello and welcome to the Serpent Temple podcast weekly review. You may notice that our sound is much better, but to compensate, we're much tireder than usual because we've had a week of extreme upheaval, so we're going to sound professionally weary this
I had a haircut.
If I did have a haircut. I need a haircut. I tried to oil my hair and now I just feel like very greasy. So yeah, that's great. I can slide over surfaces very easily right now. But yeah, let's talk about what we're going to review today. We're going to be looking at Akercocke's iconic album, Words That Go Unspoken, Deeds That Go Undone, released in 2005. Then our mid-album is going to be Cobalt's banger, Slow Forever, released in 2016. And then we're going to be looking at Spectral
Wound.
Spectral Wound. There are like 10 bands with Spectral in the title, so forgive me. I knew it was Spectral. I listened to the album, it's very good. Spoiler alert. Spectral Wound, released in 2021. So let's start with the album names that I can pronounce, and band names I can pronounce, I guess. Akercocke. What do you think of Akercocke? So we all know what I think.
I don't think it'd be remiss to say that we're all pretty big fans of the band, right?
We're pretty enormous fans, yeah.
I mean, it's your introduction into the metal sphere, really, isn't it? Them and System.
Yes, they burst my cherry, so to speak. Yeah.
That's pretty apt considering the
it's
album
quite
artwork,
metaphorically similar to their lyrical themes, yes.
Yeah, it's I've been the first Akercocke album I listened to was The Goat of Mendes, The Goat of Sam Mendes. And I'm looking forward to seeing that performed live in full this year at Damnation.
Fuck yes, at the pre-show.
I need to buy tickets for that, actually. It just reminded me.
You definitely do. I think they only have like 200 left or something.
Yeah, shit, I'll get on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is I really like this album because I feel like it's quite a good culmination and representation of their core sound. And one thing I found out when I was doing a bit of research, which I never knew, was I just presumed, because this is the first album to feature Matt Wilcock of the Berserker on guitars, and I presumed he wrote the guitar parts, but apparently he didn't. It was actually Scanlon that wrote the guitar parts.
Yes, it was. I believe he got kicked out, and then they just got Wilcox to play a lot of them. But I think maybe he wrote some. I don't know. But I feel like it's Antichrist is the Wilcock album. I always say Wilcox, but I guess it's both. But yeah.
Tomato, potato, potato.
Wilcox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's I think it's got. I think this album has got like less of a frenzied approach. Like definitely in like a lot of the guitar work, like like a lot of the leads and solos are a bit more kind of traditional sounding, for lack of a better term.
I think they've come into their own more in this album. I feel like I know the guys love Rush, and that's one of the reasons they like really kind of hit off as a band. And I feel this is a more Rushy album. Like you can feel the kind of more proggy elements coming in.
Definitely makes sense with all the sort of transitions, like Shelter from the Sand, which I think is one of my top 5, maybe even top 3 Akercocke songs.
It's my number 1 Akercocke song for me.
I thought it was, I couldn't remember. But the amount of transitions in that are just unreal. There's so much in that one song that is just completely...
It's a masterpiece. I love that song so much.
I mean, it's just the what was the bit I've time stamped it 3 minutes 29 seconds when he's fucking laughing over the track. just love it. It's just so like what I like about Akercocke is like when you listen to say a second wave black metal band or sort of a satanic death metal band that's where it be a deicide or whatnot, then that doesn't sound inherently, let's say, satanic, for lack of a better term, until you delve into the lyrical.
Yeah.
Sort of the lyrics, the lyrical lyrics. But what's great about Akercocke is they sound satanic.
The atmosphere is like peak Satan, but it's kind of like...
more esoteric, I would say, as opposed to satanic.
It reminds me of like a 70s Hammer horror film. Of like that, I mean, they literally sample bits of like stuff like that, but it reminds me of like Christopher Lee in like just in a room being like, you must not delve into the dark magics. It's just like that. Yeah. It's great. I love the atmosphere, and the fact that Mendonca's just like acting the character. He's like taking on the like personas of these like horny satanic people.
Well, I think that's what's great about, like, especially the vocal delivery as well, specifically the clean vocals, is they are very theatrical.
They are.
And it comes across. And I think, it's great because you could tell, like, obviously they take the music very seriously in the composition, but you could tell, and when you watch them live, you know this as well, that they're having fun. And there is an element of, that they are aware of, not that it's corny, but they are aware that it can come across quite hammy at times.
It can be a bit kitsch, but it's really fun. Like, every hardcore Akercocke fan will pretty much be able to reel off, like, most of the clean parts of, like, any Akercocke album. It's like iconic, especially if they're playing live. There'll be people screaming and, like, screaming along with, like, even the spoken word intros and stuff like that. It's just, they're so fun to engage with as a listener, and I think that's part of why I ended up actually being able to get into them as my first ever, like, metal listening experience, because I listened to Antichrist and I loved the cleans, and they were really easy to sing along to. And I don't know if it's because I'm, like, a huge Phantom of the Opera fan. Like, I love really theatrical, like, musicals and stuff like that. And I also really loved the darkness and the anger and the extremities of the music and how that juxtaposed with the cleans. I thought it was so cool, and I love Mendonca's delivery. It's, like, so unique to him.
Yeah. No. So Antichrist was the first album you got into. Yeah, that's a good album to start with, I think. Yeah, you're totally right. I think a lot of times in the more extreme subgenres, not enough time is devoted to the actual phrasing of the vocals. Yes. So, and it's very, like, run of the mill or by the numbers, and it's whether either Chuck Schuldiner or John Tardy worship, or but I think what they've done is really present something that's unique, and it's funny because I think we've talked about this before, where it's like that sounds kind of like rippled out and had a snowball effect, and all their sort of side projects that they've done, and it's quite a distinct feature of that kind of London scene. But totally. But no, I just echo that sentiment 100%. And when they reformed in 2016, I think I saw them live at first at Bloodstock, which I think was their first show back. They might have had a show in Camden before.
I can't remember which was first.
Not sure. 2016, literally. I mean, 2020 feels like 5 years ago, so 2016 feels even longer ago.
It's weird because to me it feels like 5 minutes ago. I was like, wait, did Akercocke reform so long ago? Because it feels like I went for a really long time without Akercocke. Because I remember seeing them like in 2007, 2008, and then I didn't see them for like 10 years or something like that. It was like a really long time.
Yeah, it felt like a long time when they were gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, I don't know, time's just fucking weird though, isn't it?
I don't understand it.
But I really want to echo your point about people singing along, because I think I think they opened with Son of the Morning at Bloodstock.
Yes, yeah.
And it was just surrounded by loads of Akercocke fans all out of tune singing along to which was a pretty special but equally funny experience.
It is like such a nice experience to be able to go to like a really heavy metal show and to be able to sing along and have like those moments, and then also have the bursting into like frantic heavy fucking riffs and cool transitions and the drum. I mean, we have to talk about the drumming as well, because I think that is, I mean, Akercocke is amazing in that every single musician is so virtuosic and talented. Like, the guitars are insane. The drumming is like probably, in my opinion, the best drumming that you will find in heavy music. I think Gray is like just ridiculously underrated. I don't understand why more people aren't like, look at this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just because the band's still quite underrated in the wider sphere.
True. Yeah.
But no, I mean, he's an absolute like beast on the drums. Like, he's because you get a lot of people that can blast beat, but it doesn't sound too controlled. Like, it's not. Like, he can maintain the groove and like the cool cymbal work while still transitioning, and
like moving
blasting
around the
his socks off.
Like, I don't know if you've seen, like, they usually have like the drum cam at their shows, so you can go on YouTube and watch him drumming. But even in real life, like, you see his wrists blurring, like his hands and wrists are like literally blurred as he's drumming. Like, I can't even, I just, I mean, it blows my mind how fluid and easy he makes it look while he's just like moving around the drums like a cartoon human.
It's, man, I've had so much respect for just fucking, him and just expert drummers in general. There's
Yeah.
one track, Eyes of the Dawn, which has some really... One thing I love about this album as well is I really like the production on it. Like, everything is crystal clear, and like you can even hear him like choking the cymbals at certain parts in the song. And in this song in particular, it's just got such solid like blast and cymbal work, like, you know, that is just so... Kind of reminds me a little bit like I'm not the biggest fan of the band, but Dimmu Borgir, their drummer Nick Barker, is just
Yeah.
an absolute fucking blast maniac as well.
Cool.
But does it in a way that's so like, I don't know, it's still quite groovy and fluid, and it sounds effortless.
Yeah.
And that's what I get when I listen to him drumming as well. Like, it sounds easy for him.
Yeah, I remember reading about... So for a really long time, I basically bought their Renaissance and Extremis like CD bonus thing of like a book on how the band formed, and they have like this huge bit about Rush. And I think after that, I've listened to Rush before; they're a great band, but I listened to them next to Akercocke, and I was like, this is eerily similar in a way that you wouldn't expect, with like the drumming and the way the kind of stuff flows in the songs is actually like super Shelter in the Sand sometimes.
Yeah.
And like I could never compare David Gray's drumming to like anyone else's, but now when I listen to Rush, I'm like, that's David Gray drumming.
Well, that's funny, because the interesting thing is David Gray writes a lot of the lyrics for Akercocke, right?
Probably, I think so. I mean, he is very into the tits and Satan thing.
I think he does. If it's not, I apologise, but I think it is. And the interesting thing is Rush, Neil Peart,
Yeah.
or Peart, however you want to pronounce
Oh,
it.
does the drummer write the lyrics?
He writes all the lyrics for Rush as well.
Damn.
And he is one of the main sort of composers of Rush as well.
Oh.
Like, he is one of the most... I mean, like, Neil Peart is... Or Peart, I think is the correct pronunciation.
Yeah.
How fucking apt is it that I fuck up the word's correct pronunciation? But he is lauded as like one of the best, like, I saw Shem laughing at the corner of my eye. One of the most like fucking like most musical best drummers of all time. I mean, like, and I mean, I love Rush, and it's you're right. Like, when you listen to them on first glance, it's not so apparent how good they are from a technical perspective.
Yeah, totally.
But when you kind of like delve into the actual, and they were using like polyrhythms and weird shit before, you know, fucking Tool was ever a thing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Tool just fucking suck anyway, but come and fight me. But yeah, I was gonna, like, another thing that I think is cool about the band is that a lot of the album art, well, this is pretty much, this and Renaissance are the only albums without tits on the cover, or bums, or just general nudity.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of nudity on Antichrist. There's a cleavage.
The one with like the green header and
yeah,
thing.
it's like got the strip. It's got like a strip of like a collage of breasts and bodies and things. But yeah, like this, when you open up the album on this, there's like a beautiful drawing of like a lady with enormous jubblies and a goat and like loads of flowers, and it's just really beautifully done. And David drew that as well. And I think he had like some comic stuff that he did, and it's all like very large breasted ladies, but it's actually drawn really well. And like I do like his style a lot. I think it really suits the album. I just really like that you're like, oh, no tits, and you open the album.
Big tits, yeah.
There's big old tits, yeah, and there's like a goat with a boner or something, if I remember correctly. It's great.
Little tiggle bitties.
Yeah, mad respect, really. Like, the whole band is so talented. And shout out to Sam Loynes, of course, who's a podcast alumni as well.
Yeah.
It's the second Sam Loynes band that we've reviewed.
Yeah, it's we'll do Voices next week.
Oh, of course, yeah. And then the week after, we'll do fucking other bands, Antichrist Imperium. We should do them too.
Yeah.
Of course. Naturally.
But so have you got any particular... Well, I mean, I'm presuming that Shout From the Sand is your favourite track off the album, if that is
down.
your favourite track of all time.
It's my favourite track of all time. I love it so fucking much. I remember one of my Akercocke highlights was seeing them perform this at Desert Fest London at the Electric Ballroom. They were like a total wildcard band. They were like pretty much the only... I think they were on before I Hate God, which is a pretty good billing. I think it's a good place to put them. But they're very much not a Desert Fest band in the usual sense, but I do think they worked incredibly well. A lot of people were very confused, but I remember they played Shelter in the Sand, and it was like... It was awesome because I'd never in a live setting, apart from like at a festival, but not with Akercocke, heard so many bands that I like in different genres next to each other, and it was so cool to hear Akercocke and be like, they're much better, way better than like 99% of any band at Desert Fest, and they were my favorite band hands down. I think Sleep were playing that year as well, so it was really cool, and a lot of just watching high people be confused by Shelter in the Sand was definitely a highlight, and just like really enjoying those mad transitions and like dropping into those beautiful vistas of like the bridges they have and the cleans.
Yeah, because they've got that moment where it like you've got like the church bells and it transitions into like the piano keys. Like was that backing track, or did they do that live?
I don't think they did the church bells live. Maybe David has like some triggers or something. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure Sam, he has like a laptop and he presses some buttons, and I think that triggers the like sounds. Because I remember when they played the Underworld, that's where I met Shem. They couldn't get the seagull sounds to work in the Renaissance track, so they asked the audience to make seagull sounds for the intro.
It's like that band, was it Dom Lawson's band, Oath?
Oath, I actually have them on CD.
Fuck Off Seagulls, right? No, something like that?
Yeah.
Something for Seagull.
My favourite Oath song, it was like, oh my god, Dom Lawson had a dream where he had massive bollocks but a tiny penis. And it's called Massive When Flaccid, Tiny When Erect. And he had to like carry his balls around in a wheelbarrow.
Shit, I saw a documentary about a guy that legit had to do that.
Isn't it called like elephantitis?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. Big old balls. That sounds very painful.
Yeah, it looked painful.
There's a South Park episode about that too, isn't there? Where they give themselves ball cancer.
I haven't watched South Park for probably close to 20 years.
I've watched about 5 South Park episodes, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. That's my South Park knowledge.
What I found cool about Shelter from the Sand, which I never knew until I'd done a bit of research, was there is like a slightly adapted Watchmen quote.
No way.
In it. It's when he says, this town is, what's the exact lyrics?
This town
again?
is afraid of me, for they have seen my true face.
Yeah, so but in Watchmen, it's just like, this town is afraid of me, for I have seen its true face.
Is that the Joker? Or the comedian?
That's Rorschach.
Rorschach?
Yeah, it's a Rorschach
shit.
quote,
Or was it the Joker? Is it the comedian? I've only just realised the like parallel between them as well. Oops.
Oh, it's funny when you said the Joker. It just reminds me of this time. Completely fucking irrelevant. But,
yeah.
My younger brother, who will remain nameless.
I know which one then.
You know, but he mispronounced the word Joker once and ended up saying it in a northern accent. He said Joker instead. So, so every time I see anything Joker related, it's like, hey up, it's the Joker. So stupid, but it still fucking kills me.
Oh, I love it.
But nah, it's like Shelter from the Sand is just such a fucking opus. I think it
is beautiful.
And like the whole Rush didn't make sense because I didn't really, I wasn't actually aware that they were big fans of them. But you know, when you listen to 2112 by Rush, which is their like 20-minute song, which is just has a similar like different like acts, so to speak, and it's just really it's really impressive when bands manage to have so many transitions, but it still remains quite fluid.
It's like seamless. They're not just doing it to be like, oh, look, another transition. I'm incredible. Look at me wank on this guitar. Do you think that was the inspiration of 21 Seconds to Go, that Rush song?
What, So Solid Crew?
Yeah.
I don't know. But,
sorry, it's just in my head looping since you said the word 21.
I still quote fucking Romeo from that song when he says, 2 multiplied by 10 plus 1, Romeo done. So, I mean, that's the lyricism at its finest.
I mean, we could all learn from that, I think.
But no, I mean, I think I want to definitely give a shout out to a lot of the guitar work on this album. It's got some really crunchy, like proper, I'd say more so than previous albums, like legit, like actual, like death metal segments.
It's fucking beautiful, yeah.
Because whereas I think Goat of Mendes was a pretty much well balanced between black and death metal, I felt like this was more of a death metal album, in my opinion. So Coronson was a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But that had like more, like it was. And the thing is, like, they're a hard band to categorize because they've actually got quite a unique sound that is quite characteristically them. So, but like, I think there's definitely moments on this album I was like, okay, this sounds like some old school death metal shit. And I used to think that was because of Matt Wilcock. Because obviously coming from Berserker, who are, for those that don't know, are an Australian sort of death metal, death grind band who are just massive Carcass fans, really. It's just a Carcass worship band with a super fast drum machine.
Yeah. Is it insanely fast drum machine?
Yeah, I think they actually had a real drummer for the second album,
Well,
and
did
it still
David Gray
sounded like a drum machine.
He did some drumming for them. He's listed as being a member
no way.
on the Encyclopedia Metallum.
Oh, there you go. And they're never wrong.
Oh, of course not.
No.
No, absolutely not. Unlike the Akercocke website, which so basically, whilst doing research for this episode, I stumbled upon the Akercocke website, which I used to frequent a lot when I was younger. I used to go on the message boards and hang out with Sam Loins back when his username was Sloins, and I can't remember what mine was, but yeah, if you go on it now, it's been like hacked by lifestyle bloggers. So you've still got the Akercocke header, and you've still got the suggested videos of like Akercocke music videos, but then you've also got like dental implants and how to plan a wedding in Hawaii. And it's just really, I don't know why they chose akercocke.com to do that, but they did.
It must just be some auto-generated shit where just a random website gets...
Yeah, I think something happened to the Lowen. Similar thing happened with Lowen, because like some guy was like, "Oh, we'll do." This really lovely man actually, in Europe was like, "We'll do a website for you. It's all free. I'll do it for you." And he did it, and it was live for a long time. And I went on it the other day, and it's just like a blank page. So I think that just happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know the first thing about HTML, so I mean, I couldn't build a website.
I was terrible at MySpace. I was very unpopular because of that. I just don't understand it at all. No.
My favourite MySpace profile was some dude... I know I was talking about how I hate parody accounts, but there was a guy who used to pretend to be M. Bison from Street Fighter. And like his quote or tagline was, "I like to drink beer and smoke weed," and I just thought that was the funniest thing in the world. That was my sense of humour back then. And you had all the different Toms as well. You had Upside Down Tom.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And,
like Neopets who collect all the Toms.
That dude's a legend. He got out at the right time, sold it for a shit ton of money, and unlike Mark Zuckerberg, isn't trying to take over the fucking world.
He doesn't have a horrible karmic debt. He's
No.
not going to go to the lowest circle of hell, unlike some people. But yeah, so good on him. Good on Tom. I wonder if he still looks the same, if he walks around wearing a white shirt and then randomly looks over his shoulder at people.
Yeah. I bet no one recognises him until he does that.
Yeah.
So he'll do it and people are like, "Oh shit, that's Tom."
It's him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, bless him. I mean, there's so much to say about this album, and there's so much to say about Akercocke. The thing is, we talk about them so much, and we're going to talk about them more for sure in future episodes. So
Yeah.
I don't really know how far to go into them, but they're my favorite band. So I'm pretty biased, but they are fucking amazing, and you should check them out if you like music.
I think the thing for me is with this particular album, and I've got a similar point I'm going to make with Spectral Wound later on as well. Like, this would be the album I would recommend to someone who hadn't listened to Akercocke before.
Absolutely, I agree.
Because I feel like it's got enough accessibility and it's got all the core elements of their sound that's kind of strewn across all their albums.
Yeah.
Including like some of the more experimental synth stuff that you hear on them, say like The Dark Inside on Antichrist. Like that's prominent, Jesus Christ, on some tracks on this album as well. So I think, it's a good encapsulation of that sound. Their
100%.
sound.
It is my favourite album as well by Akercocke. It doesn't have all my favourite songs by them, but it's definitely the album that I go to if I want to listen to one Akercocke album. That's the one I usually choose because it's the easiest. After that, it's usually Antichrist or Renaissance and Extremist. Those are like the three that I really go into. Then Coranzon and then Rape of the Bastard Nazarene is like at the bottom. Not because it's terrible, but because I prefer the other ones.
Yeah, well, there's always going to be winners and losers in life, isn't there? So someone's got to be at the bottom.
Sorry, Akercocke.
Yeah.
Album number 1 or whatever.
It's funny. It's because I don't know if you probably would remember at the time, but like when they were getting a bit of traction in the scene, they used to always, just the publications I was reading, always used to compare them to Opeth.
Oh, no way!
And I think it was just simply because they've got that same light and shade, like particularly with the vocals and some of the instrumental passages.
That is mad.
And it's funny because you would never think they were two bands that sound similar.
They don't, in my
at
view.
all, but they've got similar like components in terms of how they approach music.
In terms of composition, I can see why they would say that, but yeah, with like the vocals and the mood, I don't feel it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like I think we all like Opeth a lot too, so
yeah,
maybe that they meant it in like I don't know. If you like them, you'll like the other guys.
See, I kind of see it as almost like a butterfly effect thing, where it's almost like in an alternative timeline, the bands have kind of like just fractured off.
Yeah.
And you've got one band became Akercocke and the other one became Opeth sort of.
Imagine if Michael Akercocke was the tit-obsessed, like, guy that writes about ropes of cum, like, launching over nuns in churches. I just can't imagine it. Although his voice would suit the cleans. He has such a beautiful voice. It's so, like... But I kind of like how rough Jason's voice can be sometimes. Like, how affected his voice is.
I remember the first time I heard his harshes, particularly his deeps, I was, like, amazed at how kind of muted and muffled it was. Like, it truly sounded incomprehensible.
It's like he's being waterboarded sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like it. Like, I think
enjoy
it sounds
that
really
too.
fucking cool. It's proper, like, animalistic, and I love his highs and his lows. I think he's got some of the best highs and lows in the game. Like, because it's just sheer, like, fucking, like, histrionic highs and then completely fucking
gargly,
subterranean
wet lows. Yeah, really good. I mean, there's that song. Well, it's not a song. They have like all these interludes. I can't remember if it's on this album, but Abaddon are Dying in the Sun, I think, with like all these snarling dogs and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's just really fun to like. I mean, me and Shem will randomly just start making that noise sometimes because we're completely normal, mentally stable human beings. But it's to me a kind of Jason Mendonça-ish moment, even if he's not necessarily making those sounds. But it's just really like it kind of embodies his vocals for me. Those like snarling dogs and ripping flesh sounds. It's a very Ack moment.
Yeah. So should we move on to the next one?
On that note, I believe so. There's no point in rating this album because it's better than all the other albums ever made. Go check them out. Check out Renaissance and Extremist, their most newest edition. Hopefully more coming soon. And then the next album we're going to look at is by Cobalt. The album is called Slow Forever. It was released in 2016. So what is your take on that, Floyd?
Yeah, so I have been following this band since the Gin album, which was the album previously. Mm-hmm. And one thing I never knew was it was mixed by Dave Otero, who's the guy that mixed most of the Cattle Decapitation albums. And I really like his kind of mixing and production work. Like,
I know you like Cattle really Decap as well.
Good. But I think this album, well, firstly, it's fucking long. Like, it's a really long album for a start. So it's so revisiting was an interesting one because for me anyway, when I've got a really long album, I really need to kind of zone out and sit with it and kind of just take it all in because I've never really, and that's the cool thing about starting doing the reviews is because in some ways I do have quite a short attention span. So to sit down from an analytical perspective and try and listen to something that is almost an hour and a half in length is like quite arduous. But I was like, do you know what? Let me just sit back, take it in, and then I'll see what I fucking think of it. But one thing I do take away from the album, which I do really like, by the way, that was a really long and roundabout way of saying I like the album, is it's quite a clear departure from their previous works, which were more kind of more black metal or black metal orientated. And I think that the musicianship on this album is a lot more mature. Mm-hmm. Like, it just sounds so much more polished, and just everything's composed in a way that is just a lot more kind of musical, and just really, really dug it.
Yeah, I get you. I think this album is like, the energy on this album is insane. It's like really beautifully sustained throughout the entire album, which is, as you say, very long. I think on a vinyl this would be at least 2 sides. It just feels, there's like 12 tracks, and there's a disc too on the CD version as well, apparently. So that just kind of tells you how long it is, even though I don't have the exact number because I'm a lazy researcher that's had a busy week. But yeah, like, this album is the album that I tend to put on when I'm going to go for a run.
Okay, that's interesting.
Perfect album for running.
Okay.
Because you've got like the build up, I think, in Hunt the Buffalo. And that's the first track that I actually I heard through Cobalt, thanks to Spotify, actually. From on their playlist, they came on and I was like, what is this band? This band is amazing. And I always put this on before like a 5K because it's just the perfect... By the time you warmed up, it will just like blast into the first kind of crescendo of the album.
Yeah. And
then you just feel like so energized. You feel like you want to take on the entire world. It's like great to pound the ground. That sounds weird. I won't say that again. It's great to go for a run while you listen to it, for sure.
Yeah, pound the ground is a phrase. I've heard that before.
Is it?
Yeah.
It just sounds kind of lame when I say it.
Yeah.
Maybe if I was American it would work, and like a wrestler or something.
No. Well, it'd be lamer if you said it in an American accent.
I'm going to do some ground and pound.
That's an MMA thing,
It
isn't
is an MMA thing, yeah.
No, I think there's a lot to get through on this album. My favorite tracks are probably, I really like the track Beast Whip.
Yes, that's a good track.
Elephant Graveyard is a great track because it kind of has one thing that I think kind of comes through in this album a bit more is that kind of that DB sludgy, almost hardcore sort of influence. I think it's worth noting as well. Obviously, this is the first album featuring Charlie Fell, sort of the new vocalist
Of Lord Mantis,
who's got like more of his style kind of really reminds me of kind of more of a Kanate sort of, more like actual real human screaming and yelling as opposed to the traditional sort of distorted, more kind of robotic black metal approach.
It's like that black sheep wall shrieking that we like. Yeah.
And it really reminds me of that, and also Steve Austin, not the wrestler, Stone Cold Steve
I was
Austin.
going to say.
Steve Austin from Today's the Day.
No way.
I don't know if you've heard them. They're a pretty cool band. They're kind of like a hardcore-y sort of... God, I wouldn't know how to categorize them because they've done so many albums. But noise projects, I suppose. But he's got that same really shrill. It's kind of like it's quite nasal as well. But I think it fits quite well with the music.
Agreed. Yeah, totally. I mean, there's a lot to say. I think this is just one of those albums that once you listen to it, you kind of get it. If you describe it, it's really difficult to kind of convey just how explosive the music is, because a lot of reviewers will be like, it's explosive, it's awesome, it's heavy, and I'm sure I do the same thing a lot. But this is like truly an explosive album. It's really it's just heavy as fuck, really, without needing to necessarily like rely on a blast beat or rely on like tremolo picking the whole time, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because to be honest, I think they do that much in the same way that Neurosis do.
Yeah, totally.
And I think Neurosis are obviously an influence. I know that the multi-instrumentalist Eric Wonder used to drum for Jarbo, a Neurosis collaborator.
Didn't he get kicked out, or was it the other guy?
No, so it's the former vocalist that was kicked out.
That's right.
So he is the guy who's always been involved with the instrumentation.
Yeah, I remember before when they announced the album, I think Wonder and the guy that got kicked out, at first they were like, due to personal differences, Wonder was like, the other guy's going to do the album and he's leaving, and then they got back together, and then I think in the end the other guy got kicked out anyway.
Oh, okay, so it's a bit like confused. Okay.
Yeah, it was like 2013 when he said they were like going to start doing the beginnings of the album, and it was released in 2016, so it sounds like it was a bit of like an arduous process. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can kind of hear that coming through in the album as well, I suppose. But no, but you're totally right with the whole sort of heaviness and the way that the tracks sort of build gradually, because I feel like that's something that Neurosis have kind of mastered, and I feel like it's something that's an influence on them. And there's a lot of tracks, like another one I really like is Final Will.
Yeah.
Which opens with some really quite high audible bass work. It's got some really cool sort of eerie harmonics before it just and it's one of the few tracks as well that has more of the straightforward blasting and sort of tremolo picking, more akin to the black metal style. But one thing that I love about this album is, like you said, when it hits their crescendos, crescendo only works if the crescendo itself is worth listening to.
Right. Yeah.
And that's one thing I think this band totally nails, is they do have such a good ear for groove with the riffs that when those riffs hit, they fucking hit like a fucking elephant. Oh my god, it's beautiful. It's almost like euphoric. Yeah. When you're listening to this, it's like from the beginning to the end, whenever they drop into one of those like insane heavy moments, you genuinely feel, I mean I do, you just feel like this sense of like power and like energy that you want to just go and like lift some weights or something. And I think it's interesting vocally, and it's similar in a way to Akercocke, not in terms of sound, but in terms of like how the vocals are constructed, is that Fell is like, he's very percussive, and the words that he uses aren't necessarily what he means, if that makes sense. So his lyrics are kind of constructed in such a way to sound cool and to like convey meaning through the sound and the percussion, and it still kind of makes sense if you read them, but it feels like you're kind of getting an overall view of what he's saying, as opposed to like so
in some music theories, like for example in traditional Iranian music, when you're singing a poem, you don't sing the poem how it's phrased. You actually fit the words to the melody. So it's the other way around. So I feel like he's doing the same thing is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that makes sense, because a lot of the time it's not sentences, it's just words that are just sort of interspersed there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he'll like elongate certain words and then shorten certain words, and you're like not sure what he's going to do, and it kind of changes the meaning of what he's saying, or at least takes the meaning away, but you kind of still feel it, if that makes sense, through his delivery.
See, that's a really interesting point, because I think the way you've phrased that makes me realize that I actually really like that.
Me
in a
too.
lot of lyricists, because I feel like that helps integrate the lyrics into a song that can't be done in a way if it is, say, more prosaic or more like a, because like a lot of the times, you have a song and then, you've got the music and then you've got the lyrics and the vocals.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're separate.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they don't.
Thanks for slamming. For those who are listening, Shem just slammed the door. He was trying to be really quiet. He just let the door go. It was just like, bam. Anyway, what were you saying?
I can't remember.
It's all about lyrics and like fitting them in with delivery.
That was it. No, yeah, because like a lot of the times, it's like it's not integrated into the music. Yeah. And that's why I like this sort of style of lyricism, because it's a great way of kind of intertwining it and making sure that that it seeps through into the music as well.
I get you. Have you ever read or seen any Samuel Beckett? His plays, the way he plays with language and delivery.
Samuel Beckett done. I'm going to look like a complete noob if I get this wrong. He done Waiting for Godot, right?
Yeah, he done Waiting for Godot. Yeah. Yeah. I really like how he plays with language. I like that in poetry and like poetic delivery. I'm going to sound like a fucking wanker, but I did English at uni, so this is what I paid 30 grand for. So let me have my moment. But I really like it when poets and playwrights, they do this. When I think it's done in some traditional music, not in Western traditional, certainly in some Asian cultures that I know of, where like the sound is more important than the actual language, and the language is like a medium for the sound. And the shapes of the words are, and then when you kind of feel the music wash over you, or the words or the poetry, the actual percussive nature of language and the flow and the contraction and expansion of phrases is in itself a form of music. And like when you're having a conversation with someone, tone is kind of musical, right? Like the way you say, like everything we do in a way is music. The way when you have a conversation, you're having a slow one or a fast one, or you're changing the measures of speech. And I think music and poetry, you're fucking with that, and you're like seeing how that can change how someone reacts to a language presented in a certain way, or sound presented in a certain way, because language is sound, right? Everything we're doing is sound. I'm gonna sound like I'm going into Joe Rogan mode. Oh my god. The DMT's kicking in.
It's the new mics they've taken over.
Psyche. Yeah, totally. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is I really like it. I think this is unexplored in metal. I don't think enough people are. I think this is something that there will be Samuel Beckett's and there will be Shakespeare's when it comes to things. I think Al Cisneros is a good example, the way he uses language. Even System of a Down with Serj Tankian just having like nonsense words in his songs. Yeah. That's a good example too. And I think in like the heavier music, I would really like to see like the Charlie Fells doing more of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you know, is like a very accomplished and talented singer that you are. that it's like there's certain like even vowels and words and phrases that you have to alter the way you do it to get the desired impact. And I think that was, when recording vocals myself, that's something that I totally kind of have learned, is that, that you've really got to kind of deconstruct words.
Absolutely. So
to deliver them properly.
You open up vowels when you're singing, and if you sang how you spoke, it would never sound as good. Yeah. And this is often why people who sing sound American, because if you sing in an American accent, you're opening up all your vowels, which allows you to kind of project more, have better breath control, and your pitch it's easy to hit pitch. So that's why when you listen to someone like Korn or Disturbed or whatever the guy is, instead of saying me, he says May. Yeah. He says, it's killing May. It's horrible. I hate it. But that's basically what you do. You say May. You don't say me. You don't say like. There's some, if you're ever bored, go on YouTube, there's like some people that will like sing a song in an English accent and then sing a song in an American accent, and you see the difference is so big. And like even the way you can sing a song in that way is really different as well.
Yeah, it's true though, isn't it? Because there's kind of like I think you notice it in pop music. There's a real sense of homogeny there with the way a lot of things are kind of sung or performed, and it's I suppose it's why I never hear anybody sing in a Scottish accent. It's like all the words are so harsh and stop at the back of your throat. You wouldn't be able to do it.
So you got great black metal.
Yeah, unless you're the Proclaimers, because obviously they sing in a very distinct Scottish accent.
Do they?
Yeah, I mean...
Are they the I would walk a thousand miles people?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty Scottish, yeah. I mean, well, that sounded northern, that didn't sound Scottish. What a wake up.
Joker.
Yeah, the Joker.
The Joker. Well, there you go. That's our mini vocal lesson for the day.
Oh, one track, going back to Cobalt, Slow Forever very quickly, that was a very, had a very different feel and was quite a cool album closer, was the last track, Siege.
Yeah.
Which I think was actually a bonus track.
It's a hidden track, according to my copy-pasted Wikipedia thing.
There you go. So I didn't do the research, I didn't know, I just guessed. but that had like almost a bit of a Godflesh kind of Neurosis vibe about it, and it's very different from the rest of the album. So it makes sense that it was a hidden track, because it totally threw me for 6 when I first listened to it.
Interesting. Yeah, I honestly, like, when I listen to an album like this, I tend not to pay attention to the songs, even if I'm reviewing it. To me, I guess that makes me a lazy reviewer, but, you know, partly not having time. I think if I had, like, a lot of time, I would want to go into them, but overall, the album kind of just leaves me with a distinct impression of it, as opposed to being able to take apart specific tracks, apart from maybe like Hunt the Buffalo, which is probably the best one in my opinion, and it's kind of the title track, because that's when he says slow forever, I suppose, in the lyrics.
No, but you're totally right, because at the end of the day, you know, when you've got an album that's 83 minutes long, you know, you're obviously trying to construct something that conveys something over a space of time. If you wanted to write an album that was to be dissected track by track, it'd be 40 minutes long or something, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
and it's, you know, and I think that's actually evident in their interludes that they use in this album as well. It's got a distinct sort of like Americana sort of feel about it. It kind of sounds like you're in like an arid desert.
Yeah, it feels. You
tumbleweeds like rolling by and shit.
Yeah, I mean, I never realized it, but I kind of knew it, and then when you said it, that was like my moment of course, yeah, you're totally right. There is like a sense of heat in the album, and he says gasoline and propane a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just feel like this is a thing that a lot of bands did in like the 2010s, like Rammstein being all like, what is it about petrol that people like singing about?
It's pretty metal, I imagine. Petrol, isn't it? I mean,
is it? Yeah, I mean, there's that pop song. Was it Gasolina?
Oh, the gasolina. Yeah.
I like that song. Wasn't it banned for being satanic, or was that a different song?
Jesus, God, I don't know about that.
I don't know. Maybe
probably anything could be banned for being satanic.
Honestly,
Little Nas X, you know.
Oh my God, I love that track. Honestly, that's like my favorite song of 2021. It's so catchy, and the video is actually amazing.
Yeah,
I honestly recommend watching it.
Yeah, I've not watched or listened to it, but I've heard of the I suppose the backlash against it, because it's very.
It's really not that extreme.
I knew it wasn't going to be that bad. I knew it was. Yeah.
It's just because it's a guy that's black and he's giving Satan a lap dance and then kills Satan. It's like, well, if you don't like Satanism, surely that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That he like dethrones Satan, but I guess he becomes. I don't know. Who cares? The fact is, it's a beautiful piece of art. And he learned to pole dance, I think,
I'll give it a listen.
Yeah.
I did share that meme. It was it's that meme of Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's holding little baby versions of the turtles' hands, and it was like little Nas X on
all the black metal.
Yeah, it was like Deicide, Marduk.
It's true. He is way more out there and metal than any of these black metal bands. Honestly, like. It's like that dog meme. It's like little Nas X is like the big muscly dog, and all those black metal bands are like the little dog with like a little cut with like a fucking.
It's like the hench Sheba, and then you got
that's it.
I love that meme.
It's so good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, like I have so much respect for him. I dare a musician to actually, like, you know, do that, be that way.
Especially someone that has such mainstream appeal.
Right.
'Cause he was number one for fucking ages.
Deservedly so. It's a really good tune. Like, I've actually been wanting to listen to it, which I never do with any form of non-metal music.
I don't think he was number one with that song. He may have been, I don't know.
Oh, really? Was it?
He was number one for ages with a track he collabed with Billy Ray Cyrus.
Oh my gosh!
Was it Billy Ray Cyrus?
I don't
so.
know.
I could be chatting utter bullshit.
No
here,
idea.
But I think it is.
Is that Miley Cyrus's dad?
Yeah.
No way! I did not know.
Yeah, he had it was called Old Town something, and it was like, was it? That was it. Yeah, it was number one for the longest time. And I don't pay attention to chart music, and I wouldn't know, but I remember there being a lot of hype around that track. So yeah, fair play to the guy for broadening his horizons.
Yeah, I mean, this is really funny because just now on my phone, a band called Spectral Groove just liked one of my Instagram posts. This is why I don't know any band with Spectral in the name. Like, can we just rename them all and just have one Spectral band, please?
It's a tricky one. And I remember when I was Spectral Wound, who we'll be reviewing soon, and I was reading the comments to their, I think, Profound Law, who released it.
I know the comment, I saw it too.
Well, it was just like, I thought this was Spectral Voice.
Yeah, it's the best mistake I've made.
Yeah. I think Spectral Voice, the side project of Blood Incantation.
No way.
So you got them. You got Spectral Law, who are the Greek one-man black metal band,
Love
and then
those
Spectral Wound, who are the Canadian black metal
There's
band.
also a band that we're playing with soon called Spectral Darkwave. I've done guest vocals on one of their songs as well. So there's like 1 billion Spectrals out there. I'm pretty sure there's a few more.
It's like death metal bands with gore as their prefix. You got Goregasm, Gore Guts.
Yeah, I feel like gore is a bit easier because it's like more. I just didn't expect spectral to be such a commonly adored word.
Yeah, it's become quite a newish thing. Like these bands have popped up within like the last sort of 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be so popular, I suppose. But yeah. Any last thoughts on Slow Forever?
No, just I think I just want to give another shout out. Just the guitar work. I think it's a marked improvement from previous albums. And whereas I do like. What I do enjoy about the previous albums is that it's got more of a sort of a black metal feel to it, which is good, and that suits those albums. But I think there's been a definite upgrade in musicianship. Jesus. With I've moved house recently, so I've not had much sleep.
Bless you, yeah.
And no, it's and I think you're probably not going to like this, but there's at times where it even reminds me a bit of Tool. Like it's definitely.
I can
got
see why you'd say that.
Yeah, some Undertow era Tool kind of vibes at times.
That's cool.
And I'd be surprised if he wasn't a Tool fan. But yeah, it's got that kind of
no one's perfect.
That lysergic kind of vibe about it at times.
I like that. That's a good adjective. Lysergic. Yeah. Well, I agree with you. This is a brilliant album. This is another kind of shared love that we all have for this band. They're just bloody brilliant. I hope we get to see them live one day. And shall we move on to Spectral Wound?
Let's do it. Before we do that, I remember the fact I wanted to say, which I thought was really cool.
Floyd's facts. Here we go.
You were mentioning Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Earlier, and did you ever hear what he said when
stabbed in the back?
Yeah. God damn it.
I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I know exactly what you're going to talk about.
I might as well have just said, Aragorn broke his toe when he kicked the fucking crown.
That's the first thing I thought of after you said it. Yeah.
Such a cool fact, though.
It's an amazing fact. For people who don't know, why don't you tell them?
You do it. I'm going to fuck it up so you can do the honours.
So basically, Christopher Lee, on the set of Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson was directing. I can't remember who it was. Maybe you can fill me in, Floyd. He was directing 2 actors, and he's like, the actors are playing out the scene, and Christopher Lee is like, that's not the sound a person makes when they're stabbed in the back. And Peter Jackson is like, why would you say that? Because he's like, I know.
Yeah, that's pretty much it verbatim, I think.
Yeah. Basically, Christopher Lee used to be a spy, and he also has fought in some wars, I believe. Which war was it? I don't bloody know.
God, wouldn't know.
I thought it was like there was like another one. I can't remember which, but I'm pretty sure he was that. He was also a spy and a direct descendant of Emperor Charlemagne.
Yeah, because that's why he named the album that, right? Or is no, that's the name of his project, right?
Yeah, exactly. Charlemagne.
And he released a Christmas metal album.
I know, he's so cool. I miss him.
The biggest one, he was the inspiration for James Bond, right?
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
Shit, I did not know that.
He was friends with the guy who wrote it.
Ian Fleming.
Yeah. Ian Fleming.
No, I did not. Ian lymphatic phlegm.
I was literally thinking about phlegm. I don't know why. We just both gazed into the distance and started thinking about.
Just think, what bands have phlegm in it? That's just a gore grind band.
Oh, there's definitely a phlegmy gore grind band. There must be like a.
Yeah, there was a band called Lymphatic Phlegm I used to jam back in the days.
That is a horrible name.
It's such a
That's
bad name.
disgusting.
And it had like it was the early carcass school of like fucking overly long medical
Nice.
terminology. It's like that Mexican gore grind
Oh,
band.
the longest name in the world.
Well, I think there was a band called Para something Osis,
Yeah.
which has a super long name. But there's now another band
Oh no.
that has a super long name, and their album is just called Gore. And I can't remember what the name is. We'll look it up at some point.
I bet that some journalists mix it up and think they're called
Yeah.
Gore, which is a really good name for a band, but very difficult to search on Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn. Well, good for them. I mean, it must be really annoying when you've had like the longest band name in the world, and it's like, why you named your band that, and then someone else just does it with like one extra letter.
Yeah, because then now you're just a band with a really long band name. And you're not even the longest band name in the world. You're the second longest
That's
band name in the
so
world.
annoying.
And it's just fucking, that's your shtick ruined.
Imagine if you just got their name and then put an S on the end, like in Scrabble.
Yeah. Or just do an Entomb, just put AD at the end. Or
ADBC.
Venom Inc.
Do like a C, circa, and then the band name, and then BC.
Yeah.
Do it like that.
Yeah.
And then an S as well, like at before the
Yeah.
BC. That would be really good. We should do that.
Wish my band name had an S in it, because I totally redesigned the logo to have like the school S, the super
Oh
S.
yeah, that would be
That'd be
awesome.
sick.
You should totally do that.
Yeah,
I think Miles would be into it.
I think so.
Miles, are you into it?
I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's a resounding yes from Miles, who is not in the room. Yeah. Well, I mean, Spectral Wound.
Yes.
My first impressions of this was, fucking hell, it's fast.
It is very fast. So Spectral Wound, a Diabolic Thirst. This is their third album. So they are a black metal band from Montreal, Quebec. Quebec. We've had
Quebec.
this discussion before, right?
It is Quebecois. When Shem was like, Quebecois, I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
what sound did you make? But he was correct. I stand corrected. It is Quebecois.
So you are right. This is a very fast album. I'm
Yes.
quite interested to hear on what your take on this album is.
I actually really liked it. I wasn't expecting to. At first, I was just like, "Oh God, one of these." But then I was like, "Damn, this is actually really good." There are bits where, I'm not a headbanger. I'm a like chill, take it as it is, like whatever when it comes to shows and listening to music. But I did find myself nodding my head. This is the second time this year that's happened. It's really catchy in places as well. The riffs are good. I'm shocked. Like I'm enjoying. You're making me like black. I know that's what you wanted to do, but I'm just, it's just a relief that they're not bloody Nazis or anything. So I let myself really enjoy it, which I normally wouldn't with this kind of music. I'd just hear the guitars and be like, oh, I mean, I've got to go Google them now and look at their lyrics, which I can't find their lyrics. I'm sure they're out there.
Lyrics.
But it just seems, they seem awesome. I like the thing I like the most about this band isn't their music. It's the fact that the singer professionally reviews wine. And if you go on their Encyclopedia Metallum page, his picture is him in like a cut, and he's like sampling some wine in a glass, and he's got this like look of like extreme appreciation on his face. He's like, his eyes are slightly narrowed, his brows are somewhat kind of contracted, and he's just angling this glass and taking a good sniff, and he's like, that's some good wine. And I just love that. It's really
Kinda Akercocke-esque, dare I say?
It's very Gal Gorgoroth Satan
Yeah.
interview era with
Yeah,
the wine
that's true.
glass. I really like that. They obviously they seem like cool people. It made me want to drink wine, but not like, I don't know. I wanted to drink Duna Jam wine as opposed to UK rainy weather wine, which is pretty intense because I don't normally want to. It's just bloody cool. The cover's mad. The cover is as chaotic as the music. The drumming is just like fucking big, fast. The guitars are big and fast. There's like a bit of contrast here and there, but it just felt mainly relentless, which was cool.
See, I think this is the thing, like, because you listened to a fair amount of black metal when you were first getting into the
Yeah,
scene,
I
so to
listened
speak.
to black metal for a good few years
Yeah.
and not much anything else. I used to go to like 3 black metal shows a week at the Unicorn and places like that.
And it's very much a similar thing has happened, much in the same way as the death metal scene, where it's become so oversaturated.
Yeah.
It's very, very... You end up missing a lot of good music because it's so homogenous, and there's times that we just do not have the time, nor the effort, really, to really delve into so many albums. It's just like, okay, I've heard this before.
Right, exactly.
I don't want another band to follow that does a similar style. But, and that's the cool thing about this album, is that they aren't doing anything particularly new.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's nothing, like, it's a very traditional sounding album. Like, there's a lot of second wave elements. Like, at times it really reminds me of Sargeist.
A lot of people on the YouTube were like, Sargeist, and I was like, who are these guys? But they sound cool.
It's totally true. It's definitely a good sort of comparison. You know, that same kind of it's that utilization of the tremolo picking to kind of convey or invoke emotion, or that sense of despair that they both do very, very well. And there's a lot of second wave elements, and and I think that's why this album has captured the underground's attention, because a lot of people kind of, well, on my Twitter anyway, a lot of people seem to be losing their shit about this album.
Okay.
And I think it's because when you've got a band that takes these things that have been done before, but still manages to somehow make it sound refreshing, write the songs in a way that they sound energized and impassioned, then it just works. And it just shows that you don't necessarily always need to be doing the most experimental shit imaginable.
Right.
Which is kind of what's happened in the black metal scene. You've got the two extremes at the moment. You've got bands that are so steeped in tradition that they're just treading the same ground that's been treaded for the last 30 years now. Or you've got the other side of the coin. You've got bands who are so experimental that it's just way too fucking out there, and it's just like fucking complete noise.
Yeah, it's more inaccessible.
And I think that's why the point I was making before about the Akercocke album, Words That Go Unspoken, being the album I would recommend, is that this would be the album I would recommend to someone who hasn't listened to black metal before.
Oh, yeah, I can see why.
Because I think this has got enough of the core elements of black metal that give you a good representation of what the scene has to offer musically. Yeah. And yet it doesn't sound hackneyed.
I get you, because like to me it was kind of refreshing, because it sounded to me how black metal sounded when I first started listening to black metal, and I was like, I was coming in with fresh ears and fresh eyes, and I didn't have like the jaded kind of experience that I've had in the scene, because like the main reason I stopped listening to black metal was the people and not the music. And like, no offense to the majority, but like there were a minority that made it very difficult for me to be in any black metal show for a long time. But yeah, like the first thing I wrote down when I listened to this was that it's like obviously so fast, but then I was like, the guitars sound like fawny. The music sounds like a landscape to me. The guitars are like thickets of fawn, like you can see the cold landscape around you, and the fact there's like very few lows, it's all very high, everything's very shrill and high in the mix, and like not forward but high, if that makes sense. And those like that tremolo picking, it's like I literally wrote down, it makes you feel cold, it makes you feel like you're being buffeted by cold mountain winds, and like I really love Frigid and Spellbound. It's like super groovy, and those drums are like really pounding, and then they burst into this like flurry of shrieking and tremolo guitars, and like I really like how they've obviously thought about how the atmosphere, like obviously atmosphere is so important in black metal.
100%.
Yeah, but they've really like refined the atmospheric element of this album without having to be like slow and Akercocke like a lot of the time. Like they've done it whilst being fast, which I think is really impressive, because a lot of the time people are like, I'm just gonna be really fast, but they've done it like they've actually been really, they've had a tailored approach, I think, in a way.
And I think, you bring up a really good point, because I think, 100%, like that is what black metal should do at its core, is invoke that atmospheric sort of feeling of, whether it be, a cold atmosphere or, icy tundras or whatnot.
Is there any desert black metal? Is there black metal about like the baking heat of the desert? Is it all cold?
That's Cobalt, really.
I guess it's Cobalt, but that's like the American desert.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, well, the funny thing is, obviously we've, despite their storied history, I always found that Akercocke's music was quite summery at times.
Oh, I think that, like, what is it, Nailed to the Cross on the Wall?
Yeah.
Summer is coming on. Yeah, God, it's been a while since I thought
like
about
I used to listen to them in the summer. I felt they were like a summery band as
I think
opposed to
they're
a wintry
both.
band.
Because obviously Falling Snow is like the thing that I used to just put it on when it was snowing. I think I literally got into them because I was on Facebook when I was like 16 and it started snowing. It was like one of those years where there's loads of snow and some like black metal person I had on there posted Falling Snow because it was like, it's snowing. And I was like, oh, damn, this is the music for the weather. It's perfect. Let me listen to this. That's how I got into them. Obviously, I don't listen to them now. But yeah, that's a very good point. It's definitely relatable.
So what I like about Spectral Wound is their two previous albums are not anything. They're very good albums, but they're not anything overly special. Mm-hmm. So it's obvious that this album they've kind of honed their craft and what you were saying about how it's like super fast in some sections, and I think. When they're at their best is when they're super fast because they could do it in a way where you can still kind of pick out the emotive qualities of the riffs and stuff. But what they do on this album, which I think they've kind of also really upped their game on, is kind of there's a lot more dynamics in sort of like the tone of the music and the speed as well. Like one of my favorite track on the album is Mausoleal Drift. Which is probably
Mausoleal Drift.
Mausoleal, fucking.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those words, mausoleum. I was thinking, of course, it's a mausoleum, but like, you see like a variation of a word you've never said out loud before. Before I read that, I was thinking, fuck, I've never said this out loud before. I'm gonna fuck it up.
Shem does that a fair amount. We usually do that with a word earlier. What was it you were saying?
No, I pronounce everything correctly the first time.
No, you don't. You absolutely 100% do not. It was some random word. Anyway, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
But yeah, this is a really dynamic track because they've got much in a similar way of that Cobalt done on their album. It's got quite a slow build and it's got that kind of that eerie, foreboding kind of like classic second wave black metal atmosphere. But then it builds and builds, and then with that tremolo style super fast riffage that is quite akin to Sargeist, but and then I think about 7 minutes 20 I've got noted down here, it's just like the climax or the crescendo of the song is just completely super empowering, and and I just love that it fades out with a nice kind of like tom heavy, some nice tribal drum work and a good atmospheric outro as well.
I love a good tribal drum moment.
Yeah.
I think this album kind of reminds me of Cryptic Shift in a way because it's got that similar kind of controlled chaos element at times.
Yeah, I could see that because I think that's largely helped by the drumming a lot of the time because I think in black metal, the drumming can be pretty formulaic, but it's always great when you hear good music that actually does have a good drummer as well, and and they're not afraid to be a bit more experimental, especially with the cymbal work and stuff. There's some great like sort of rides and crash work on this album, and I think that that it helps keep things kind of a bit more frenetic, but also controlled as well.
I'd be really interested to hear how you feel about this because when I listen to any music, the most important elements for me are the vocals and the drumming.
Oof, I see.
I think there's definitely moments where that's not the case, but I think overall, because to me, a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on guitar work and like the guitar sounding a certain way, but I feel like actually that you can have a lot of bands with shit guitar, but if the drumming and the vocals are good, it doesn't matter.
God, that is a $1 million question right there.
Maybe,
See,
I don't know.
Do you know when I was, because I always wanted to do vocals, like the vocals used to be super, super important to me. They still are, like they still are important. But I think through years of not wanting vocals to ruin music, I kind of trained myself to be able to drown out vocals that I didn't like. Like if I thought vocals sounded a bit shit, I'd be like, okay, I can phase that out in my mind.
Oh, that's interesting.
And focus on the rest.
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, if they're super high in the mix, then you can't. There's nothing you can do. But a lot of the times I'm quite good at drowning stuff out on an album that I don't like. But no, I agree with you in essence because I think the rhythm section is super important.
100%.
And I think the bass is. I mean, everybody knows that bass is the most underappreciated component.
Bless
of
the bassists
the metal
of the
scene.
world.
I mean, God bless them. But in metal, a lot of the time, you can't fucking hear it half the time.
Yeah.
But which is always why I appreciate it when it does come through. But the bass is so important it's so important that the rhythm section are in tandem with each other.
Yes.
Because if that sounds like shit, then it
Everything
doesn't matter
sounds
how
like
amazing
shit.
the guitarist and the vocals are, because that's going to sound utterly dog shit.
Absolutely, I agree. You're right. I think it's definitely a personal thing. I don't think there's like an objective thing, but I think that's the most objective answer you could definitely give, is that's the first part of a band that will start to fall apart if it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I'm very sensitive to vocals. If it's scream, not so much, but if it's clean, I'm immediately analysing it from like a Terminator point of view, of like crosshairs and bleepy bleeps on the screen in my head. Yeah.
It's like that, if you've seen that gif of Alex Jones scanning something, it's like scanning. I don't know, goddamn,
Yeah.
funny gif. But no, it's I agree. But do you know what I think? I think for me, when all the components in the band are working, I think when vocals are done right and very well, that's what elevates and catapults that music to the next level.
It's the most human point of contact with a band.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the point of emotional connection. You know, there's like some instrumental music that's incredible, but like the most iconic, I don't know, I feel like some of the most iconic pieces of music are pieces with an emotional element to it, which I think you can't convey unless you're a master musician. Without using a vocal.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the few instruments that I think truly gets close to that is probably the violin or string instruments.
It's you can treat it like a spoken instrument. You can literally make a violin sound like a voice, but that's I think the reason why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why I do dig a lot of classical music and
Chopin. His violin stuff, his scherzos, I can't say it, but they make me weep. They make me weep, and Bach as well, obviously.
Just so good, and like you could totally. I mean, there's about 2 million fucking articles on the internet about metal and classical music have so much in common.
Yeah,
but it is true. Like it's a bit of a cliche thing to say, but it is actually, there is a lot of commonality there.
The things that we appreciate about metal are the same things that you would appreciate in a classical piece of music. Like I don't think that a lot of pop fans who are really into pop will be like listening to a mix and being like, I love where they've placed a guitar. Oh, look, how they've done this transition. Like, you don't think about that when you're listening to Miley Cyrus, I think. But I think that with metal, because like you have a standard, like you have in classical music, and you can either use it in the standard way or you can manipulate it, and a lot of the outcomes and the ways that things are used, like positioning, like the way an orchestra is positioned historically is interesting. Like the first time where you stand in a room was kind of discovered as a thing that affects music was like a monk who did like the Gregorian chants. He realized that if you position monks in different bits of a church, it changes the way that music sounds. So like, they realized, if we group the sopranos like this and we group the tenors like this, and if you have like a low thing over there and a high thing over here, then you get this different experience. And I think a metal person would be more interested in that. And probably as interested, and you can see that in certain bands where like you always have placements of things and manipulations of things too. I think that's really cool. Yeah,
that totally reminds me of that Converge documentary, or Converge, where they're talking about the making of Jane Doe, and it's totally just reminds me of that, how they put so much time and effort into thinking about how things would be, and it just makes so much sense. Like, it's music if you go in and you've got a sterile approach to recording music, then it's going to sound sterile, right? So like, I mean, that's why I've always liked production that's a bit kind of raw, I suppose, because I feel like you say, with the vocals, I think it's similar. It's got that more of a human raw element to it. A lot of like violin music is often, not a lot, there's some really iconic violin music, like Mendelssohn. He did a whole kind of range of pieces of violin where he tried to imitate bird music, bird calls, because he was obsessed with how birds made music, because like, I don't know if they knew about whale calls and whale songs back then, but he found that fascinating. He wanted to emulate it. In Iranian singing, the kind of weird yodeling is supposed to imitate a nightingale singing. Okay. So you kind of have this like, art imitating nature thing going on, but I don't know. It's interesting how you can get an instrument and you use it to emulate stuff. And it's kind of through that we've gotten certain incredible iconic pieces of music, and how that is an interesting thing that we do with it. Why we want to do that in the first place is weird, right? Yeah, I suppose that's why also Botanist's music kind of resonates with a lot of people, right? Because it's totally sounds exactly like...
Sounds like plants.
Yeah.
There's an awesome electronic album by an artist called Mort Garson called Plantasia, and it's music for plants. Like, he wrote this music specifically for plants.
That's amazing.
And it's actually awesome. It's a really beautiful... You'll just feel happy listening to it. And he's literally written, like, odes to certain plant species and things, and it's just like, it's kind of bloopy bleepy music. It's like very 70s kind of 60s stuff. He's still around, he still makes stuff. I honestly recommend it. It's really different, but when you listen to it, you'll feel a sense of pure joy. It's just so wholesome that it's like a worship of nature, an appreciation. It's like, instead of making music for a bunch of people, he's making it for some plants. It's just so nice.
It's called Plantasia, you said.
Plantasia.
I will check that
it's
shit
on
out.
Spotify.
Nice.
Yeah. So do you think that covers it for today? Do you have any more things on Spectral Wound?
No, I just want to say, I think this band is going places.
100%.
I haven't seen an album kind of, in the black metal scene anyway, capture or garner as much of a buzz since probably Batushka's first album. Because when that came out, when that dropped in 2015, everybody kind of collectively lost their shit.
Oh, hopefully no one's going to be a Nazi in this band, or like a dickhead, or no one's going to... Imagine if like they all split and every member made another Spectral band.
Yes, you had Spectral Wound Inc., Spectral Wound AD.
Spectral Wound, Spectral Law, Spectral Door, Spectral Handle, Spectral... I don't know, just keep going through
Spectral
objects.
Spectre.
Cosmic Spectral Spectre. Yeah.
But no, I think this is definitely... I think anybody that's a fan of sort of extreme music, and I recommended this album to a few friends, and I said, you guys just need to check this out, because it's just some of the most well-written black metal I've heard in a long time.
Amazing.
So it's not doing anything new, but fuck me, it is very well-written.
It's doing the thing well. The standard thing,
and sometimes that's all you need to do.
Absolutely,
you
need every color of the spectrum to enjoy the full spectrum rainbow of life and music. I think that was really well done.
I think experimentation for the sake of experimentation is boring and doesn't sound organic. You've got some projects, whether it be Zeolard or any other experimental artists. Can't think of any other one at the moment. Like when it's organic, it works. But if you're just doing it for the sake of...
Well, it doesn't feel experimental when you're doing it, in a way. You're like, you're not like, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to do this and that. I think when you approach it in a formulaic way, yes, absolutely. But I agree with what you're saying. When it comes naturally and people are like, wow, that's different. That's experimental. You're like, actually, it's just what I wanted to do.
Yeah, it's why Opeth's later albums work better, because they totally just... I mean, obviously they're
doing
experimenting with using the sound, but they've just been like, well, fuck it, this is what we want to write now, and it sounds fucking good. Like, I like the new shit.
Exactly.
So, just write what you want to write, innit? It's that simple.
Do you.
You do you.
On that note, I think we can do we... No, that sounds like we're going to piss.
We can do one.
We can do one and off. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Feel free to like, subscribe, follow, insult, stalk, abuse. Don't. Maybe I shouldn't say that anymore. Forget it. Forget what I just said. Feel free to like and subscribe, follow, and be nice to us. Send us presents in the post.
You don't need to be nice to me. I don't mind.
Oh, you please be nice to me, though. I'm very sensitive.
Yeah.
I have very delicate feelings. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, damn, I'm actually not imagining many people would. But I'm grateful if they have. We're going to do more. Feel free to suggest more bands. We're going to check out 1914 soon, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank
Great
you for
album.
the suggestion. Yeah.
And we've got some good, exciting guests coming up.
We do.
Next few weeks.
We do. So, yeah. Catch you later, alligators.
Till next time.
See you and goodbye.